Hello, welcome to Unbelievable Tales.
What would you do if you came to the hospital just to check on an old flame and discovered three little girls staring back at you with your eyes? Noah Harris built his empire on logic and distance. He never let emotions interfere. But when he walked into that room and saw triplets who looked exactly like him, everything stopped. He hadn't seen Claire in 6 years. She vanished without explanation. And now, without a word, she may have raised his daughters alone. What followed wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning, because some truths don't knock. They explode. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Noah Harris didn't believe in unannounced visits. Everything in his world ran on precision: flight arrivals, conference calls, acquisitions. That morning, his assistant had begged him to send a courier. But something had pulled him toward the hospital. He told himself it was convenience. The clinic was 10 blocks from his midtown office. He told himself it was closure. The discharge papers needed a signature, and the patient, Clare Jackson, had put his company's name under emergency contact. That alone stirred up questions. Questions he hadn't asked in 6 years. He stepped through the wide glass doors just after noon. The hospital lobby was bright, sterile, humming with the soft friction of rubber saws and rolling carts. He'd worn his usual armor, navy wool coat, pressed shirt, and a tie that cost more than most rent. But no amount of polish prepared him for what came next. He gave her room number at the front desk. No one questioned him. VIP donations had that effect. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor was quiet. Too quiet. He clenched the folder in his hand and rehearsed something neutral to say, maybe even kind. A polite inquiry. Nothing accusatory. Nothing emotional. The hallway smelled like lemon disinfectant and diluted sorrow. Room 312. The door was ajar. Noah knocked lightly, then pushed. What he saw stopped his breath halfway through his chest. There, on the hospital bed, sat Claire, thinner than he remembered, her hair tucked beneath a pale headscarf, skin too pale for someone who once radiated late summer warmth. But it wasn't her that stunned him. It was the 3 little girls. One was perched beside her, coloring. Another stood near the window with a plush elephant. And the third, the one who turned to face him, had his eyes. The same gray-blue shade that never quite settled on a single color. The same tilt at the edges. The same stillness. He gripped the folder harder, unsure if he was still breathing. Claire's eyes met his. Not surprise, more like resignation. Like she'd always known this moment would come. Noah, she said calmly. You came. He didn't answer. Couldn't. The little girl by the window stepped forward. Are you the guy with the papers? She asked. Claire smiled faintly. That's him, sweetheart. Do we sign something? The third one asked. She was missing a shoelace but stood with the authority of a courtroom bailiff. Noah blinked. Who are they? Claire hesitated. Then, these are my daughters. The girl with the elephant tilted her head. You mean our dad doesn't know? No, Claire said softly. He doesn't. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the slow beep of a heart monitor and the scratch of crayon against paper. I think he does now, one of them whispered. Noah's knees didn't buckle, but they might have if the nearest chair weren't right behind him. He sat slowly, the folder forgotten in his lap. How old are they? He asked. His voice barely worked. 5, Claire said. Almost 6. He did the math. Backward. Fast. One of them came closer. Her curls bounced as she walked. You look like us. Noah looked at Claire. Why didn't you tell me? Her answer wasn't immediate. She closed her eyes for a second as if the question weighed more than she could hold. I tried. At first. But you'd just taken the promotion. You were flying to Tokyo. Then Geneva. Then there were headlines about a merger and I convinced myself it didn't matter. That you were better off not knowing. He stared at her. You decided that for me? I decided it for them. I didn't want to raise daughters who thought they were someone's accident. His jaw tightened. So instead you let them believe they had no father? They never asked. Not until recently. Claire. She looked away. One of the girls climbed into her lap, the smallest, maybe by just a little, though her confidence made up for the height. You're not mad, right? She asked Noah. We're nice. We don't make big messes. He let out a shaky breath that sounded almost like a laugh. I'm not mad at you, he said. I'm just surprised. The girl beamed. I like surprises. Mommy doesn't. That's true, Claire murmured. He watched her, trying to reconcile the image of the woman before him with the one in his memory. The one who danced barefoot in his penthouse kitchen, hair wild, voice louder than life. Now she looked like paper folded too many times. Are you sick? He asked gently. Claire met his eyes again. Not anymore. Hopefully. He waited. Stage 2 lymphoma, she said. Caught late. Treatment worked, but there's still more ahead. Something burned in his throat. Who helped you? She hesitated again. I had some support. A friend from nursing school. The girls were amazing. They kept me grounded. The one still coloring looked up. We made her cards. Every week, said the girl with the elephant. Noah's gaze swept over them, their matching eyes, different hair textures, mirrored dimples when they smiled. There was no room left for doubt. They were his. He rose slowly. Can we talk? Alone. Claire nodded toward the nurse's station. They can sit outside for a bit. The girls obeyed without question. One of them waved at Noah on the way out. Bye, maybe, Dad? He closed the door softly. When he turned back, Claire was already crying. He hadn't seen her cry in years. Even when they ended things, her eyes had stayed dry, her voice steady. But now, she looked like someone unraveling one thread at a time. Noah didn't move closer. He knew better than to offer comfort too soon. Still, the sight of her like that, small, hurting, exposed, shook something loose in him. I never wanted it to be like this, she said, wiping her cheeks. You showing up like a ghost and meeting them in a hospital room. Then why didn't you stop it? I didn't think I'd ever see you again. He ran a hand over his face, trying to force clarity where emotion threatened to blur everything. Claire. I don't even know what to say. I've missed you for years, even after I hated you. She gave a sad smile. That's fair. I hated me too for a while. You should have told me. I know. Not just for me. For them. I was scared, she admitted. And stubborn. And yes, selfish. I didn't want your money or your pity or some legal tug-of-war. I wanted to protect them. From the mess. From what we used to be. We weren't all mess. No, she said. But we didn't exactly scream stability. He couldn't argue with that. They had loved hard, fast, and deep and loud. And when it collapsed, it had done so like a building set on fire from every floor. He crossed his arms, leaning against the windowsill. The sunlight spilled across the tile in long rectangles, warming nothing. Why now? I listed your name in case anything happened. When the doctors asked for next of kin, I panicked and said your name. I guess some part of me still believed you'd show up if it mattered. He looked down. What happens now? She hesitated. I go home. I keep getting stronger. I raise my daughters. And me. That's up to you. He looked at her sharply. I don't get a say in them existing, but I get to choose whether I matter to them? That's not what I meant. I missed 5 years, Claire. Their first steps. First words. First birthdays. I missed all of it. And you want me to believe this is a clean slate. I don't want anything from you, she said, but there was pain in her voice. But I also won't stop you if you want to be part of their lives. Do they even know who I am? Not really. I told them you were someone I used to care about. That you were kind once. Noah let out a dry breath. That's generous. It's true. He stared at the floor, then slowly pushed away from the window. I want to know them. Claire nodded. They're everything. You'll see. Outside the door, faint giggles echoed. One of the girls peeked in, then vanished again. I need to go, he said. But not for long. I'll call. Or stop by. If that's okay. It's okay. He walked to the door. Paused. Claire, he said softly. They're mine. All 3? She nodded once. I checked. No one else could have given me daughters with those eyes. A silence stretched between them, full of things unsaid. Then he nodded and stepped out. The girls were on the floor near a plastic chair, playing some made-up game with paper cups and a stethoscope. They looked up when he approached. Will you come back? One asked. If your mom says it's okay. She will, the smallest declared. She always lets us have seconds if we eat our peas. He laughed, low and real. Well, I hate peas, but I like seconds. We're learning how to braid, said another. You have to be patient. I'll practice. They stared at him for another moment. Then, as if by silent agreement, offered their names. I'm Hazel, said the leader of the trio, the one with the serious face and a small scratch on her knee. I'm Sophie, said the second, smiling like sunshine. And I'm Lila, whispered the youngest, hugging her elephant tighter. Noah crouched beside them. Hi, I'm Noah. Hazel narrowed her eyes. That's a grown-up name. Well, he said, I'm a grown-up. We'll call you, She studied him. Maybe just Noah. For now. Deal. When he returned to his car, he didn't start it right away. He sat behind the wheel, staring at nothing, his heartbeat loud in his ears. The city kept moving around him, horns honking, people walking, lives continuing. But his world had stopped. Reshaped. He didn't know how to be a father. Not in theory. Not in practice. But he wanted to learn. And if that meant showing up one hospital visit at a time, he would. Later that night, he pulled out a drawer in his apartment he hadn't opened in years. Inside were old photos, most buried beneath conference lanyards and in used passport wallets. In the back corner, folded into an envelope marked "Don't Look Back," was a picture of Claire. Taken in the Hamptons. Wind in her hair. Smile defiant. He stared at it for a long time. Then he left it on the counter. The next morning, he bought 3 sketch pads and a box of animal-shaped erasers. They weren't gifts exactly. More like offerings. When he showed up at the hospital again, the nurse raised an eyebrow. "Room 312, he said. She didn't ask anything else. Inside, the girls were still there. One drawing on the bed table, one flipping through a storybook, and one dancing with bare feet on the tile. Claire looked better already. Or maybe it was just the light. "I brought them something," he said, holding up the bag. "Bribery?" she teased. "Investment." Lila climbed off the bed and peered inside the bag. "Oh, this one has a lion." Hazel claimed the giraffe-shaped eraser. Sophie gave him a quick hug and then backed away, like the gesture surprised even her. Claire watched all of it with something soft in her expression, almost like hope. He stayed longer that day, and longer the next, and by the third visit, Hazel had braided part of his hair. By the end of the week, the nurses knew him by name. One even started referring to him as the CEO with crayons. Noah didn't mind. Every time he stepped into room 312, the outside world shrank. Deadlines faded. Board meetings lost urgency. The only clock that mattered was the one ticking softly on the wall behind Claire's bed, counting moments he hadn't earned but still desperately needed. Claire was healing. Slowly but visibly. The shadows under her eyes had softened and the hollowness in her voice had given way to real laughter. Not constant, but enough to make the air feel warmer. The girls accepted him with the ease only children possess. No grudges, no expectations. Just curiosity and small questions that landed like darts in his chest. "Why don't you have a dog? Do you know how to swim with shoes on? Did you ever get sick like mommy?" He answered what he could, lied once or twice gently, and listened. It was on a quiet afternoon that Claire asked, "What's this going to look like when we leave here?" He didn't answer right away. They were alone. The girls had gone with the nurse to the children's room for coloring time. The sun angled through the window, turning her white blanket gold. "I don't know," he admitted. "I'm not pretending to have a plan." She turned her head slightly. "That's new." "I know." They sat in silence for a while. Then she said, "I'm not asking for anything." "I know. But they'll ask. And I won't lie to them." "You shouldn't." She looked at him. "Are you staying, Noah?" He wanted to say yes. God, he wanted to. But the word felt too fragile. Like it would crumble under the weight of his uncertainty. "I'm here," he said instead. "And I don't want to leave." Her lips parted. "Closed. That's a start." That evening, as he prepared to leave, Hazel tugged his sleeve. "Can you come to our house sometime?" "I'd like that," he said. "When your mom's ready." She nodded. "We have bunk beds. But I sleep on top because Sophie snores." "Do not." Sophie shouted from across the room. "Yes you do," Hazel said, deadpan. Like a grizzly in a closet. Noah laughed and it startled him. It wasn't polished or quiet or polite. It was real. And Claire smiled. When he finally left the hospital that night, the city felt louder than usual. More chaotic. But something inside him had shifted. A weight he hadn't known he was carrying felt a little lighter. Until the next morning. He was in the middle of reviewing merger documents when his assistant buzzed in. "There's someone here to see you. She says it's about the hospital." His pulse jumped. "Send her in." The woman who walked in wasn't from the hospital. Not directly. She wore a tailored coat, no makeup, and carried a clipboard that looked like a threat. "Noah Harris?" she asked. "Yes. Child Protective Services. I'm here regarding the minor children currently listed under Clare Jackson's medical care." He stiffened. "Is something wrong?" "There's a discrepancy in legal guardianship," she said. "The mother is currently incapacitated. There are concerns regarding the children's safety post-discharge." He stood up. "Excuse me? We're not accusing anyone of anything. But until paperwork is confirmed, the children may be placed into temporary care." No, he said sharply. Absolutely not. Sir. They're with their mother. And he paused. I'm their father. Her pen stopped moving. Biologically? She asked. Yes. Legally? No. But, she raised a hand. That's enough. I'll need confirmation. And possibly a paternity test if this goes to court. He swallowed. Is this really necessary? It's protocol. He sat down slowly. I can file for custody. Or guardianship. Whatever you need. She handed him a card. Then I suggest you start now. By the time she left, the heat in his chest had turned cold. He drove to the hospital without thinking. When he arrived, Claire was awake, the girls quietly stacking wooden blocks in the corner. He closed the door. There was a woman at my office today. CPS. Claire froze. What? She said since you're not formally discharged and there's no legal guardian listed, the kids could be taken. She paled. They can't do that. They can. Unless we stop them. She sat up straighter. How? I file a petition. For joint guardianship. Maybe temporary custody while you recover. You think they'll give it to you? I have the resources. I can move fast. Claire didn't answer right away. Then, this isn't a business deal, Noah. I know that. You can't just sign papers and expect everything to fall into place. I don't expect anything, he said. But I'm not letting strangers take them. She looked at him for a long time. Then nodded. Okay, let's do it. That night, he didn't go home. He stayed with the girls while Claire slept. Read them stories. Got their juice cups. Helped Hazel brush her teeth with her glittery toothbrush and got toothpaste on his tie. He didn't complain. The next morning, he sat in the hospital hallway with his laptop open, emailing lawyers and filling out affidavits. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and every so often one of the girls peeked out and made sure he was still there. He always was. And when the CPS officer returned 2 days later, Claire handed her the forms without a word. We're ready, she said. You can't take them. The paperwork bought them time. Not certainty, but a buffer. The CPS officer left without comment, only a short nod and a warning, we'll be in touch. Noah didn't trust the neutrality of her tone. He'd spent years reading investors, board members, auditors. This woman was watching, weighing, measuring something invisible. And he didn't like it. Over the next few days, Claire's condition improved enough for her to walk around the floor. She moved slowly, leaning on the railings, but with each step, the sharp edge of fear in her expression dulled. The girls stayed close, orbiting her like tiny satellites, and Noah learned how to be part of that orbit without disrupting it. He learned that Hazel liked routine and rules, that Sophie changed her favorite color every 48 hours, and that Lila carried her elephant like a shield. They were distinct, full, messy little people. Not an abstract idea of children. Not extensions of Claire. And not strangers anymore. He was learning their rhythms. And they, in turn, were learning his. They started drawing him in their pictures, tall, clumsy-looking versions of himself, usually beside stick-figure versions of Claire with big earrings and long hair, and sometimes an inexplicably tiny cat. Hazel labeled her drawings with his name in block letters. Noah. Just that. No title. Then one afternoon, while Claire was resting and the girls were arguing over glitter stickers, Hazel climbed into the armchair beside him and said, "Are you going to be our dad?" He blinked. "Do you want me to be?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "You don't know how to make grilled cheese right." "I'm learning." "And you don't sing." "I definitely don't sing." She looked at him for a moment, then shrugged. "You're okay. Maybe you could learn the rest." He smiled. "I'll try." That night, Claire watched him brush Lila's hair with a patience that surprised even himself. Afterward, she handed him a cup of tea and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're good with them," she said. "I'm trying. I didn't think you'd want this. I wasn't sure you were built for it." "I wasn't," he said quietly. "But they are." She tilted her head. "They're teaching you?" "Every day." She smiled at that. Then her face grew serious. "They'll get attached. Fast. If this doesn't work, if CPS says no, then I fight harder." She looked down into her tea. "I should have told you about them earlier." He didn't reply. Later, as he packed up to leave, Claire asked, "Do you remember the night I left?" "Which part?" He said a little too sharply. "The elevator." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I remember. I almost stayed." "I know. I had the test in my coat pocket." He froze. "I was going to tell you, but you were on the phone negotiating that China deal, and I just couldn't." Noah's throat tightened. Why didn't you tell me that before? Because it still felt like betrayal. And because saying it out loud made it real. He sat down across from her, tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. You think I wouldn't have wanted them? I didn't know. I would have, Claire. I would have tried. I believe you. It was the first time she'd said that. I believe you. It landed softly but rang loud. The next week was a blur of hospital signatures, emails, and appointments. Noah's lawyers moved faster than he thought possible. Claire's release date was set. A CPS caseworker scheduled a home visit. The girls were thrilled. We'll show her the cereal, Sophie declared. And the toothpaste drawer, Lila added. Hazel remained skeptical. What if she's mean? Then we'll be nice, Claire said. And honest. On the day of the visit, Noah scrubbed the corners of the apartment he didn't know existed. He stocked fruit, put tiny toothbrushes in labeled cups, and even bought a set of storybooks he'd never heard of before. He made the space not just livable, but livable for them. Claire sat on the couch with her hair tied up and a blanket over her legs. The girls lined up in freshly brushed hair and not quite matching socks. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. The woman who entered wasn't the clipboard officer from before. This one wore soft shoes and a cardigan with tiny flowers on the cuffs. She smiled warmly. Good morning. I'm Dana Rowe. The girls swarmed her with introductions. Sophie led a tour of the apartment with pride. Lila offered cookies. Hazel gave a full inventory of the first aid kit. Dana took notes but mostly observed. She asked Claire questions gently. Asked Noah tougher ones. Then she turned to the girls. Do you feel safe here? 3 small heads nodded. Do you like it here? I like the windows, Lila said. They're tall. And he buys cereal with marshmallows, Sophie added. Hazel thought for a moment. It's different than before, but in a good way. Dana smiled. That's a good answer. The visit lasted 90 minutes. When Dana left, she shook Noah's hand firmly. You're doing better than I expected. He exhaled. Thank you. But this isn't over. I know. Claire walked her to the door. Before leaving, Dana said quietly, you may not have started the story well, but you might still finish it right. That night, the girls fell asleep in their new beds. Real beds, not hospital chairs or fold-out mats. Claire sat on the couch with her legs tucked under her, hair loose, a mug of tea in her hands. Noah sat beside her. You think we'll get approved? She asked. I think we're already a family. She looked at him. That wasn't the question. He hesitated. I don't know, but I'll fight like hell. I believe that. There was that phrase again, and it settled deeper this time. He looked around the apartment. Crayons on the table, mismatched shoes by the door. A sketch Hazel made of him with glasses. He didn't wear glasses, taped to the fridge. It was chaos, and it felt like home. The courtroom wasn't what Noah expected. It was smaller, warmer, fewer pews, no jury box, just a judge, a clerk, a long table, and the thrum of tension held barely beneath the surface. Claire sat beside him, hands folded tightly in her lap. The girls were in the waiting area with a friend from the hospital staff armed with coloring books and juice boxes. They had been told this was a talking appointment, not a fight. Claire had made that clear, but it felt like a fight to Noah, and he had no intention of losing. Dana Rowe was there, organized and neutral. She gave her recommendation first that the girls remain with Claire and that Noah be considered for co-guardianship pending final review. He's committed, she said. Protective, learning, and they trust him. Claire spoke next. She was soft but steady. Told the story plainly. The mistake of leaving. The fear of reaching out. The sickness. The silence. He didn't have to show up, she said, looking at Noah. But he did. Again and again. Then the judge turned to him. Mr. Harris, she said, adjusting her glasses. You've lived your life under a very different set of rules. Corporate, structured. Custody and care are Messier things. Are you prepared for that? I'm not just prepared, Noah said. I've already started. The judge raised an eyebrow. I didn't grow up thinking I'd be a father, he went on. I thought success meant distance from people, from risk. But these girls, they don't care about my portfolio. They care if I'm listening. If I show up. If I braid hair badly but try anyway. A small chuckle went through the room. Noah continued. They've taught me that love isn't built on grand gestures. It's built on the 1,000 small things. Cereal. Band-aids. Listening. And showing up even when it's hard. The judge gave a small nod. Do you understand the responsibilities this will bring? I do. Do you accept them without condition? I do. Claire reached over under the table and took his hand. The judge looked at both of them. Then I see no reason to delay further. Guardianship is granted. Joint? Claire gasped softly. Noah just closed his eyes for a second, letting the words sink in. Outside the courtroom, the girls were waiting. Hazel looked up first. Well, she asked. Claire smiled. We get to go home. With you? Sophie asked, turning to Noah. With all of us, he said. Lila squealed. Can we get pancakes? Absolutely not, he said. It's lunchtime. Then lunch pancakes, Hazel decided. It's a thing now. They stopped at a diner on the way home. The kind with scratched booths and syrup already on the table. Claire ordered something light. The girls ordered everything. Noah ordered whatever Hazel pointed to. They sat like a real family. Not perfect. Not rehearsed. But real. Later that evening, back at the apartment, Claire walked through the rooms slowly, touching surfaces like she was mapping a future with her fingertips. The girls scattered. Lila dressed the elephant in a sock. Sophie sang something out of tune. Hazel lined up 3 chairs and called it a train. Noah stood in the kitchen, watching it all. There was a new drawing on the fridge, 3 stick girls, 1 tall woman, and a man with exaggerated eyebrows. The title read, Our Loud Life. Claire joined him at the counter. You okay? He nodded. Just adjusting. To what? This version of everything. She leaned her shoulder into his. Does it feel real yet? I'm not sure real ever felt this good. She laughed. Don't go poetic on me now. I'm not. Just grateful. She looked at him. You're doing well. I have an excellent team of teachers. Claire went quiet. Then said, they called you something earlier. When you weren't listening. Oh, Dad. The word hit like a soft punch to the heart. What did you do? He asked. Nothing. It felt right. He didn't answer. Just stood there, letting the moment land. That night, he read the girls a bedtime story, one Claire had read to them before, about a lion who thought he didn't belong until he found a field of quiet things. He made the voices too dramatic. They giggled. Hazel rolled her eyes. Sophie asked for a second story. Lila fell asleep holding his hand. Claire watched from the doorway. When he came out, she handed him a folded piece of paper. It came in the mail. From the hospital. Discharge clearance. He took it. You're really free. For now. They sat on the couch, the apartment dim and quiet except for the occasional sigh of a child turning in sleep. I'm scared, she said quietly. Of what? Of failing again. You didn't fail. I disappeared. He nodded slowly. You're here now. I don't know what to call this, she said, motioning around them. You don't have to call it anything. But you do. You name everything. He smiled. Okay. Then I'll name it home. She looked at him for a long moment. And finally said, good. In the dark, the apartment breathed around them, imperfect, cluttered, full of whispers and mismatched socks and coloring pencils under the rug. Noah Harris had spent most of his life building towers. Now he was building something messier. Stronger. Human. A life he hadn't planned. And somehow the only one that made sense.
Bye, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.